Gathering of the Qurio is one of the most interesting quests I have seen in the history of Monster Hunter. Instead of introducing new mechanics, this quest plays around with key parts of the hunting experience in order to completely change how we approach it, and today I will look into what makes this quest in particular stand out. This quest is very unique and contains spoilers for the story and the endgame of Sunbreak. If you haven't done it yet, I would highly recommend that you experience it for yourself before you watch this video, so consider this my spoiler warning. Before we jump right into it, we need to talk a little bit about the series of events that led us to unlocking this quest. So, in the context of Sunbreak, monsters are becoming more aggressive, and to understand why that's the case, we came to the outpost of Elgado and teamed up with Heroine, who is one of the Knights of the Royal Order. Our investigation led us to the potential source of the problem, the Elder Dragon Malzeno and the small creatures called the Qurio. These Quurios have a symbiotic relationship with Malzeno and drain the life energy of other living creatures. After Malzeno is slain, we discover that the Qurio are gathering in the Citadel, and before we can start looking into why they are acting this way, we need to take care of a Lunagaron in the area. Thus, we accept the quest Gathering of the Qurio. Now, after accepting the quest and reaching the locale, you quickly come to realize that something is off. The Citadel, which is usually filled with living creatures, seems empty. What we find are carcasses scattered around the map, and only one large monster remains. It's the Lunagaron we were supposed to hunt, but even that monster seems odd, and this becomes even more apparent after noticing the swarm of Qurio flying around it. This is the setup for this quest. On paper, Gathering of the Qurio looks fairly similar to the quest Ice Wolf Red Moon that we did back in Master Rank 4. Both quests share the same locale and the same target. At the surface level, these two quests here are pretty similar, but what makes Gathering of the Qurio so unique is in its presentation, inside the quest itself. It manages to stand out by messing with three key things that we are used to when we go on a hunt in Sunbreak: the music, the fauna or the living breathing world, and the target monster. Let's start with the music. To highlight what this quest does differently, we need to understand how music is normally used during a quest. At the start of each quest, we can hear a short tune that serves as an introduction for the locale we will be exploring during the hunt. Additionally, a specific music plays when you are fighting small monsters, there is a main theme playing when you are fighting a large monster, and another track plays when you are chasing said large monster. All of this is to say that the music you hear in the quest is dynamic and will change based on what's happening. To illustrate what I just said, this is what it sounds like when you start a quest in the Citadel. And this is what you hear when fighting a large monster. What you just listened to is what you normally hear, but now I want you to listen carefully to what plays during Gathering of the Qurio. The difference is shocking. If I had to describe the Citadel's theme in one word, it would be heroic. It's the kind of track that fills you with energy and resolve to make sure that you complete your job and come back home alive. Through its many instruments, it conveys a feeling of empowerment. Gathering of the Qurio, on the other hand, is nothing like that. Gone is the jingle we were so used to. Gone is the empowering music of the Citadel. All that remains is a creepy, eerie, and ominous music. You see, when I mentioned the three things that this quest did differently, I started with the music, and that was for a good reason. As soon as you enter the map, this is the first thing you will hear, the first warning sign that something about this quest is totally off. What amazed me is that this track was able to trigger specific emotions the longer I listened to it, a feeling of dread and tension rising with each new step I was taking, with each new area I was going through, a feeling of fear as I was getting closer and closer to the main target, and lastly, it was sending shivers down my spine, not because I was excited, but because I was frightened. This speaks volume to how powerful music is when it comes to triggering emotions within ourselves, and it also shows how drastically different this music is compared to what we are used to. Normally, during a hunt, the music only starts playing at key moments, like when you interact with a small monster or a large monster. In between these interactions, nothing plays, there is just silence. But interestingly enough, Gathering of the Qurio doesn't follow that rule. At specific intervals, the music will slowly fade out and fade in again, and I found this brilliant. By fading out, it gives us the illusion that this nightmare, this fever dream of a hunt is coming to a close, but it isn't. Then the music starts again, reminding us that this is far from over. This track is unconventional by design, and stands in sharp contrast with how music normally works during a quest. As I highlighted earlier, the music of Monster Hunter is normally dynamic and changes based on what you are fighting. But in Gathering of the Qurio, the track we hear plays at all times. Regardless of what you are doing, regardless of where you are, and most importantly, regardless of if you are fighting a monster or not. It is a constant, something occurring continuously over a period of time. This absence of a clear pause really elevates the track and makes you feel a sense of impending doom, that the danger is at every corner, lurking in the shadows. So on its own, the music is extremely effective at setting up a different mood compared to what we are used to, but that's not the only thing this quest does differently. It also plays with our expectations when it comes to the living creatures we typically find within those quests. And this brings us to the second element this quest treats differently, which is the fauna. The many maps of Sunbreak are filled with various creatures that we can classify into three categories: large monsters, small monsters, and endemic life. All of these creatures bring life to the maps we explore. Having them around creates a rich, living, breathing ecosystem full of different animals. The key word here is full. That is what we expect whenever we go on a hunt, but within this quest, what we get is the polar opposite of full. It's empty. If you use the targeting button to select a large monster, you will quickly realize that the only thing you can lock onto is Lunagaron. Seeing Lunagaron here makes sense because it's the main target of our hunt, but it begs the question, what happened to the other large monsters in the area? In any other quest before this, outside of the main target, we always saw one or two additional large monsters on the map, but here it's not the case. This piqued my curiosity and made me want to understand what happened here. After some exploration, I did find large monsters. However, I was not expecting to find them in such a state. In Gathering of the Qurio, all the other large monsters are dead, and if you go the extra mile to explore the map, you can find three carcasses of large monsters: a Garangolum in Area 2, a Volvidon in Area 5, and a Zinogre in Area 10. This was disturbing to see, not because I didn't think that other large monsters could die, but because I never expected that to ever happen. Each quest leading up to this one was always full of large monsters roaming around minding their own business. Seeing these other large monsters around became a certainty, something that I always expected to see, until it wasn't. But the state of the other large monsters isn't the only thing that's off about this quest. In the same area where we found the Volvidon, there is also the carcass of a small monster, a Castodon. And unlike the normal carcasses of the small monsters, this one appears to have died fairly recently. This signifies that whatever we are noticing here isn't just affecting large monsters, but small monsters as well, and it becomes more apparent after we realize what happened to the endemic life. Another thing that I was taking for granted is about the endemic life, the various little creatures living in the Citadel. Many of them can be used by the hunters to achieve certain things, such as luring a large monster or dealing more damage during wyvern riding. These creatures are so synonymous with their function that I often think about them more as tools rather than other living beings. They never move around the map, instead they just sit there waiting to be used by a hunter passing by. And as usual, I was expecting the same thing to be the case in this quest when I went to pick up my third wire bug, until I realized that it wasn't there. I checked Area 3 to see if the starburst bugs were there, but no sign of them on the walls. I also looked for the Cutterfly in Area 2 and yet again it was nowhere to be found. It's at that moment that I was reminded of what Fiorane said at the start of the quest. I do not sense any life here. This made me understand the true extent of what she said, and I was simply amazed. I never realized how much I was taking these small animals for granted until they disappeared. This is something that the game also reveals to the player through the minimap. During a normal quest in the Citadel, if we open the minimap and sort it by endemic life, we can see that the map is filled with these little creatures everywhere. But if we try to do the same thing during Gathering of the Qurio, nothing shows up. None of these creatures stayed around, and this plays perfectly into the feeling of emptiness that the quest is going for. We are shown that what's happening here is so dangerous that these animals decided to follow their instinct and fled the locale. At that moment, I stopped seeing the endemic life as tools, and they truly became living creatures capable of reacting to a change in their environment. The absence of endemic life specifically during this quest became a powerful way to convey to the player that something terrible was happening. Not only are the large monsters dead, not only are the small monsters also dead, but even the endemic life has deserted the area. By gradually giving us more clues, Gathering of the Qurio shows us firsthand that this anomaly runs deep. We aren't just told that the situation is dire, it's also shown to us. And now, we are just missing the last key aspect that this quest corrupts. The last piece of the puzzle, the target monster aka Lunagaron. Right away, we can see a swarm of Qurio flying around this monster, and it makes this Lunagaron stand out. This is already raising red flags because up until now, we only saw the Qurio moving in such a way around Malzeno. With Malzeno out of the picture, I assumed that the Qurio just vanished since their host had been taken care of. But after seeing these red lights around the map and this Lunagaron, I came to understand that I was mistaken. Even before the fighting begins, just seeing the Quirios again is a pretty good narrative tool because it lets the player know that we aren't done with these flying leeches just yet. One aspect of this fight that I find interesting is how the Quirios behave. Just like the music tends to fade in and out at specific intervals, so do the Qurio as well. It's very fitting, and it also builds anticipation within the player. We do not know what these things are doing here, but we can feel that something is brewing, something is wrong. And this fear becomes justified later on, after the Lunagaron fully powers up. For the first time, the music actually changes for a bit, and this is what you hear. This change in the monster state is also reflected in what we hear, and visually we can see that the Lunagaron looks more red than usual. What we have been noticing up until this point is a really cool form of foreshadowing. In that quest alone, we have been given hints that the Quirios aren't always sucking the life force out of the monsters. Sometimes they are able to make them act differently, and they can also change how they look. The full extent of what the Qurio can do isn't really known yet, but this quest is already giving us clues on what we will be fighting in the endgame of Monster Hunter Sunbreak. It foreshadows the afflicted monsters, and shows us how terrifying these creatures can be. The music, the fauna, and the main target. Individually, these elements are very effective, but it's when they are all combined in a full package that they truly shine and turn what we thought would be another quest in the Citadel into a unique hunt with horror undertones. Gathering of the Qurio doesn't feel different because it changes the objective of the hunt. It manages to feel different because it subverts player expectations in a way that's totally brand new for Monster Hunter, and this makes it the most interesting quest in Sunbreak. This quest blew me away. It twisted many aspects of the hunting experience that I was taking for granted, and managed to change the atmosphere of what I thought would be just another hunt. I never expected Monster Hunter to ever implement elements from various horror medias, but this quest managed to pull it off remarkably well. It foreshadows events to come, and also completely changes our outlook on the content of a quest in a Monster Hunter game. It easily became my favorite quest in the entire series, and I really hope that we can keep seeing more creative stuff like that in the future. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again later. Have a good one.